The moment Christine pressed that champagne flute into my hands and stepped back with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, something cold moved through my chest. Garrett Holloway, principal architect, her boss, apparently much more than that, was watching from across the ballroom with the patient expression of a man who'd already written the ending. I didn't drink that champagne, and before the night was over, I had everything I needed to write a very different one. My name is Marcus Webb. I've been operating heavy equipment since I was 22 years old, and for 22 years I've shown up to every job site with exactly two things: my tools and my word. I run a crew of 14 at Frontier Quarry and Aggregates outside Denver, supervising operations that move 200,000 tons of aggregate stone every year. I'm not a man who gives speeches or wears a tie to dinner. I'm a man who arrives at 5:30 in the morning, knows every machine by the sound of its engine, and has never once left a job half done. I married Christine Harlan when I was 37 and she was 34. Small ceremony at a botanical garden east of the city. 30 guests. My brother Dave as best man. Christine in a white dress that made her look like she'd stepped out of an old photograph. She was working part-time at a dental office when we met. Calm, practical, content with a life that didn't require much spectacle. I made a solid income. We had a comfortable house in Lakewood, a retriever named Scout, and enough weekend plans to keep things interesting without running us ragged. 7 years. We built something real together, or at least, I thought we did. Then about 14 months ago, Christine got a call from Meridian Architecture Group. They needed an office manager. It was a prestigious downtown firm, glass tower, award-winning portfolio, the kind of workplace people mention at dinner parties to sound interesting. Christine had applied on a quiet whim during a slow Tuesday at the dental office. When the offer came in, she sat at the kitchen table staring at the letter like it might disappear if she moved. "Do it," I told her. "You've earned something like this." She took the job, and for about 3 weeks everything was fine. The changes started the way they always do, small and easily explained away. New wardrobe first, silk blouses that cost what I spend on groceries in a week, heels she'd never worn before, clicking across our hardwood floors with a sound that felt oddly final. I told myself it was professional attire. She needed to fit in. It made sense. Then came the comments. "Marcus, can you not track that in from the garage?" When I came through the front door in my work boots. "You really don't need to tell me about the equipment. I can't picture any of it." When I mentioned a close call we'd had with a conveyor malfunction that shook the whole crew. One Tuesday evening I came home late from a long shift, poured a glass of water, and started telling her about it. The malfunction, the near miss. How close it had been. It mattered to me. It mattered to the guys on my crew. Christine closed her laptop lid. "I just need some quiet when I come home," she said. "It's been a really demanding day." I set down my glass. "I almost watched one of my guys get hurt today." She looked up briefly. "I'm sorry. That sounds stressful." Then she opened the laptop again. I stood in my own kitchen feeling like a stranger who'd knocked on the wrong door. By spring, Christine was attending firm events I'd never been invited to. Team dinners, client receptions, rooftop happy hours. When I asked about them afterward, she answered in 2 sentences and changed the subject. One name kept surfacing in the fragments of conversation I managed to catch. Garrett Holloway. Garrett said this. Garrett approved that budget. Garrett has a vision for the Henderson project. Mid-50s, silver-templed, principal of the firm. I hadn't met him. I was starting to understand why. I didn't ask directly. Not yet. I've worked around heavy equipment long enough to know you don't yank a cable until you understand what it's connected to. Then on a Thursday morning in early April, I found the pills. I was looking for Christine's allergy medication. She'd called out from the shower and asked me to grab it from the cabinet behind the corner hutch in the kitchen. I found the allergy pills. I also found a small prescription bottle tucked behind a bottle of cough syrup. No label. Not mine. Not Christine's. At least not from any prescription I knew about. I shook it gently. Powder blue tablets. I took a photograph and put the bottle back exactly where I'd found it. That afternoon, I drove to my sister-in-law Linda's house on my lunch break. Linda has been a registered nurse for 15 years. She looked at the photo for 4 seconds. "Zolpidem," she said. "That's a sleep sedative. Prescription strength. Someone's been careful to remove the label." She paused. "Marcus, why does your wife have unlabeled sleeping pills hidden in your kitchen?" I didn't answer because I didn't have one yet, but I thought about the mornings over the past few months when I'd woken up feeling like I'd been pressed into the mattress, sluggish, heavy, slow to clear. The mornings Christine had made coffee before I was up and left it waiting on the counter when I came downstairs. I went home that evening and poured my coffee down the sink. And that's when I realized she wasn't just pulling away from me. She was preparing something. 3 weeks later, Christine came home from work with an energy I hadn't seen in over a year. She poured herself a glass of wine, leaned against the counter, and smiled at me with something that looked like warmth but felt just slightly off, like a photograph of a familiar face that's been printed at the wrong angle. "The firm's doing a big anniversary gala next Saturday," she said. "Downtown rooftop venue, catered, open bar, the whole thing." A pause. "I want you to come." I kept my face still. "Yeah? You're always saying you want to meet my colleagues. Here's your chance." 9 months of exclusion. 9 months of being told I wouldn't fit in, wouldn't know anyone, wouldn't understand. And now I was invited. Not only invited, encouraged. "What changed?" I asked. She tilted her head like the question surprised her. "Nothing changed. I just think it would be good. For us." I said yes. For the next 7 days, I watched Christine with the level of focus I usually reserve for malfunctioning equipment. She was on her phone constantly, and twice I noticed her typing long messages and then deleting them, starting over, deleting again. She went to bed early, 2 nights in a row. She bought a new dress for the gala without mentioning what it cost, which was unlike her. And when I casually mentioned I was looking forward to finally meeting Garrett, her expression flickered for just a fraction of a second before the smile recovered. "He'll be there," she said simply. If I had asked her directly right then, I never would have found out the full truth. The night of the gala, I dressed in the best I owned. Dark slacks, a charcoal blazer I'd bought for my cousin's wedding 2 years back, clean dress shoes. I knew I wouldn't look like the architects and developers filling that room. I didn't care. I was there to watch. The venue was everything you'd expect. Rooftop terrace on the 14th floor, panoramic view of Denver's skyline laid out like a circuit board, string lights overhead, servers circulating with champagne and appetizers I couldn't identify, clusters of people in suits discussing projects I'd never hear about. Christine guided me through the crowd with a hand on my arm that felt more like steering than affection. Garrett Holloway found us about 30 minutes in. Tall, silver at the temples, the kind of easy confidence that comes from decades of never being told no. His handshake was firm and his eyes were measuring me like I was a load-bearing wall he needed to assess. "Marcus," he said, "Christine speaks highly of you." "Good to finally put a face to the name," I replied, smiling. He laughed. Christine laughed. Nobody's eyes moved the way they should. I nursed the same glass of sparkling water for an hour, working the room slowly, talking to a structural engineer from Boulder and an accountant from the firm's administrative staff who seemed genuinely warm. But I kept Christine in my peripheral vision the entire time. I watched her drift toward Garrett twice, watched them lean together the way people do when they've stopped being careful about hiding something. 45 minutes in, Christine appeared at my elbow with 2 champagne flutes. "Here," she said, handing me one. "You should actually relax tonight." I took the glass, brought it to my lips, didn't drink. The champagne smelled clean, slightly floral. Christine watched me over the rim of her own glass with an attention that had nothing casual in it, the focused look of someone waiting for a specific result. I set the glass on the ledge behind me when she turned to greet another guest, moved to the far edge of the terrace, and tipped the entire contents into the base of a potted ornamental fir near the railing. Then I wrapped the empty flute carefully in a cocktail napkin and slipped it into the inside pocket of my blazer. Little did she know, I was already 10 steps ahead. 15 minutes later, Christine checked her phone, said something quietly to Garrett, and they both excused themselves from separate conversations and disappeared through the glass doors into the building's interior. I counted 60 seconds. Then I followed. The hallway was dim, lined with glass-walled offices and the ambient glow of city lights through floor-to-ceiling windows. I moved the way I move around sleeping machinery, carefully, one foot placed before the other. I heard voices from a conference room halfway down the corridor. The door was cracked an inch. I pulled out my phone, opened the recording app, and held it at my side. "Did he drink it?" Garrett's voice. Low, unhurried. The glass looked empty. Christine. "He must have. How much did you put in?" "Enough. Linda said 1.5 dissolved in liquid and he'll be impaired in 20, maybe 25 minutes. Unsteady. Confused. Maybe irritable if someone pushes." My blood didn't run cold. It stopped. Good, Garrett said. I'll make sure Diane and the partners see him near the bar. I've been telling them for months he has a drinking problem. Tonight makes it credible. And I document everything, Christine added. Photos if I can. The divorce filing will be airtight. Unstable husband, history of erratic behavior. You'll corroborate everything as a witness. Already prepared to. A brief silence. After this, Christine, we don't have to hide anymore. I know, she said softly, and her voice had a warmth in it I hadn't heard in over a year. Just not for me. I stood in that hallway for 3 full seconds. Then I walked back to the party, retrieved my empty champagne flute from the fir tree, ordered a club soda from the bar, and waited. When Christine found me 20 minutes later, I was standing at the railing looking out at the city. She studied my face with clinical precision. You feeling all right? She asked. Never better, I said. Great view from up here. Something moved behind her eyes. Recalculation. She covered it fast. I'm glad you came tonight. Me too, I said. Best decision I've made in a while. I called a rideshare at 9 o'clock. Christine stayed. I imagine she spent the rest of the evening trying to figure out what had gone wrong with her perfect plan. I spent the drive home on the phone. Carol Fontaine was the attorney who'd handled my brother Dave's custody case 2 years earlier. Direct, efficient, and according to Dave, the kind of lawyer who could disassemble an argument before opposing counsel had finished their opening sentence. I reached her voicemail, left a message marked urgent, and was at her office at 7 the next morning. Carol listened to the recording twice without interrupting. When it ended, she set down her pen and looked at me across the desk. Administering a sedative without consent is criminal assault in Colorado, she said evenly. The recording is conspiracy evidence. Combined with the pill bottle photograph and the timeline you're describing, you have a strong criminal case and a very clean civil one. She paused. I want her served before she has time to build a counterstory. We file today. File everything, I told her. One more thing, Carol said, opening her laptop. Garrett Holloway is a licensed architect in Colorado. What he's describing, conspiring to incapacitate a colleague's spouse and provide false witness testimony, that's grounds for a licensing board complaint. I'd contact them directly and let them read the transcript. Already planned to, I replied. Carol filed the divorce petition that Monday. Christine was served at the office at 11 a.m. by a process server who, Carol told me later with dry satisfaction, handed her the paperwork in the elevator with 3 of her colleagues present. I submitted a formal complaint to the Colorado State Board of Architecture the same afternoon, with a full copy of the recording attached. Their ethics office acknowledged receipt within 48 hours. The Denver Police Department received the recording, the pill bottle photograph, and a written statement that same Monday evening. Detectives contacted Christine and Garrett separately by Wednesday morning. I'd had the locks changed Sunday morning. Christine's car was in the driveway when I got home that evening. She'd been ringing the bell for the better part of 2 hours. She was standing on the front steps when I pulled up. Scout was watching from behind the living room window. Marcus. Her voice had that controlled quality, steady on the surface, panic underneath. What is happening? I was served with divorce papers. At my office. In front of people. I stopped at the base of the steps. Yeah, I know. You can't do this. Whatever you think is going on, you have it wrong. You don't understand the situation. Christine. I said her name quietly and she stopped mid-sentence. I recorded your conversation with Garrett at the gala. I had the pills analyzed. I've spoken to an attorney, I've spoken to the police, and I've contacted the Architecture Licensing Board. I paused. I think I understand most of it. The color left her face like a light going out. Your things are in the garage. I'll give you until tomorrow evening. After that, I'll donate whatever's left. I stepped past her, unlocked the door, and went inside. She called my name twice. I closed the door behind me. The lab confirmed zolpidem in the champagne flute I'd provided, a concentration Linda later told me would have had me semi-conscious within half an hour. Garrett Holloway and Christine Webb were arrested before the week was out. Conspiracy to administer a controlled substance. Criminal assault. The Colorado State Board of Architecture opened a formal disciplinary review of Holloway's license, citing conduct incompatible with professional standing. Meridian Architecture Group, after what I'm told was a very tense partners meeting, terminated Christine's employment effective immediately. Garrett was placed on indefinite administrative leave. The criminal case moved quickly. The recording, the lab results, and security footage from the gala, showing Christine handing me the glass and Garrett watching from across the room, left very little ground for their attorneys to stand on. Both accepted plea agreements, suspended sentences, 3 years probation, mandatory counseling, and permanent criminal records. Garrett Holloway surrendered his architectural license as a condition of his plea. He will not practice professionally in Colorado again. The divorce was uncontested. Christine had no leverage and no credibility to fight with. I kept the house, the savings, the pension, and Scout. She walked away with her car, her personal belongings, and a case file that will follow her for the rest of her professional life. At work, I didn't say much. My crew figured out something had happened the way crews always do, by the slight change in the air. They showed me respect the way working people do, which is to say they asked nothing, showed up early, and bought me lunch for 2 weeks without explanation. My site manager pulled me aside a month after the dust settled. "Company's expanding into Wyoming," he said. "Regional operations manager. Pay increase, company truck. Your call on the Denver coordination structure." He looked at me. "We want you running it." I took the job. 8 months later, the house is different. I painted the main room a deep slate gray. My choice, no input required. I moved the furniture around until it made sense to me. Set up the workshop in the garage I'd been planning for 3 years but never got around to. Scout has a dog door now and uses it like he owns the property, which, effectively, he does. I'm seeing someone named Dana, an electrician who runs her own contracting crew on the north side of Denver. She laughs easily. She doesn't flinch at calluses or grease under fingernails. When I told her about Christine, she just shook her head slowly and said, "Some people don't know what they have." Simple as that. Somewhere across the city, Christine is navigating a life with a criminal record, no firm willing to touch her, and a version of Garrett who no longer has a career to offer anyone. I don't think about them much. I think about the Wyoming expansion, the new foreman I'm training, the weather stripping on Scout's dog door that I still need to replace before winter. I think about the poker game Dave hosts every other Thursday and the fact that I haven't missed one in 6 months. I think about Dana's laugh and what I want to cook Saturday. I think about the man who handed his wife every resource she needed to build a better life, never once imagining she'd use one of them as a weapon. That man was patient and steady and asked for very little. He deserved better. I made sure he got it. What would you have done in my position? Let me know in the comments.